Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about the world's choke points. These are a tiny number of narrow sea lanes that are so critical that a single blockage can stop billions of dollars in trade and, honestly, bring the entire global economy to its knees. All right, so to really get our heads around this, let's start with just one event. An event that basically peeled back the curtain and showed a huge vulnerability in our global system. So, let's go back to March of 2021. The location? Egypt's Suez Canal. The world was about to get a very real, very expensive lesson in just how fragile our supply chains actually are. It all came down to a single ship, a massive container ship called the Ever Given. It somehow ran aground and got completely wedged sideways, creating a total 100% blockage in one of the most important shipping lanes on Earth. So what's the cost of a traffic jam like this? Well, it was estimated that a staggering $9 billion worth of goods was held up for every single day that ship was stuck. For 6 whole days, a massive chunk of global trade just stopped. It was a wake-up call, a huge reminder of how delicate this whole system we rely on really is. You know, that whole Ever Given fiasco really exposed how much we all depend on just a handful of these narrow waterways. So let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. These are what we call maritime choke points, and a great way to think of them is like the internet cables of the physical world. They connect everything, and when they go down, the whole system just grinds to a halt. And what's really wild is just how short this list is. I mean, look at it. From the Panama Canal connecting the 2 biggest oceans to the Strait of Hormuz, which is everything for oil, almost all global sea trade has to funnel through just these 7 spots. And this table here really shows you why they're so vital. I mean, if you're a ship going from Asia to Europe, taking the Suez Canal cuts your journey from 40 days all the way down to 19. That is a massive saving in time, fuel, insurance, you name it. Right, so because these routes are so incredibly valuable, the big global powers have known this simple rule for centuries. If you want to control the world, you've got to control the sea lanes. I mean, just look at the British Empire. They saw the Suez Canal as this absolute lifeline to India, which was their most important colony. So to protect it, they first bought a controlling stake in the canal company, and then later they actually occupied Egypt itself, just to make sure their investment was safe. But you can imagine, having one single empire with that much control made all the other countries pretty nervous. And all that international pressure led to this, the Treaty of Constantinople. It established this principle of free and open passage for everyone, a rule that, well, in theory, still applies today. But let's be honest, history shows us again and again that when geopolitical tensions flare up, international treaties can get tossed aside pretty quickly, and these choke points, they become weapons. So what happens when that weapon is aimed squarely at the world's oil supply? To answer that, we really have to look at the most critical choke point for energy on the planet, the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, during the Iran-Iraq War, the Strait of Hormuz became a literal battlefield. In what everyone started calling the tanker war, both sides just started attacking oil tankers to try and cripple each other's economies. As things got worse, Iran started hitting any ship in the strait, didn't matter what flag it was flying. By the end, 239 commercial ships had been attacked, and over 50 were sunk or just totally destroyed. And you can probably guess what happened to the economy. The shockwaves were just devastating. As you can see here, oil prices went through the roof, and insurance premiums for shipping just skyrocketed. The disruption was so bad that some countries in the region saw inflation hit over 100%. And this isn't just some dusty old history either. Egypt closed the Suez Canal for 8 years after the 1967 war. And just recently, you've got Houthi attacks in the Red Sea causing shipping costs to spike again. It's the exact same vulnerability, playing out over and over. So, all these repeated crises have forced the world's major powers to ask a really important question. What if we didn't have to use these routes at all? And that one question has kicked off this whole new global competition. The game isn't just about controlling the old sea lanes anymore. Now it's about building entirely new ones that go over land or through parts of the world that used to be impossible to cross. You've got China pouring billions into its new Silk Road, which is basically a massive network of railways to move stuff by land. Meanwhile, Russia is taking advantage of melting ice in the Arctic to open up a new northern sea route. And you even have local fixes like Egypt's Suez pipeline, designed to let oil bypass the canal traffic entirely. So all of this is literally redrawing the map of global trade right in front of us. And it leaves us with one final and, I think, really critical question. As all these new arteries get built, what happens to the nations whose entire economies and strategic power were built on controlling the old ones?